Okay, and welcome to our second deck tech. Today we're going to be talking about this fellow, Krenko, Goblin Mob Boss. It's a 3/3 for 4, and you tap it to create a number of 1/1 red goblins, where X is the number of goblins you control. So it's a Goblin Tribal deck, typo, I should say. And we've got a couple of different ways that we can abuse that trigger. So we have Illusionist Bracers to double it up. Sword of the Peruns, which we can tap and untap with the activated ability. And it's a bit of a flavour fail, but it's really good in this deck. Sting, the Glinting Dagger. So at the beginning of each combat, untap a quick creature. So you tap Krenko for making goblins, and then you untap it, tap it again. In terms of other artifacts, we have Mirage Mirror, which you can actually use to make a copy of Krenko. Tap it, make it a copy of something else, bring Krenko back out, rinse and repeat. This is really good with Skirk Prospector. This is a busted card in the deck and has multiple different ways of comboing. If you get enough goblins, you can just go ham. Win conditions in the deck, we have Impact Tremors. Basically, when you make a load of goblins, you zap each opponent for 1. Kren Negotiations is a way of forcing through damage in terms of tapping untapped goblins we control. And then we have Goblin Bombardment, which we can use to sacrifice any of the goblins that we make to deal 1 damage to any target. Throne of the God Pharaoh. At the beginning of the end step, if you've got a bunch of tapped creatures, it deals damage. Sorry, they lose life equal to the number of tapped creatures we control. That works really well with Kren Negotiations. Now, this is a backup, Goblin Bombardment. It's called Barrage of Expendables. And instead of just sacrificing, you have to pay 1 red and sacrifice, which is not a big deal in this deck, but it is, like I say, a backup. We have a couple of damage doublers in Quest for the Pure Flame. And this one's not double, it just adds 2. Basically, with the Flame of Keld, it's a budget option, and if we're hellbent, it can be used without discarding much. You draw a couple of cards, and then you build up to the 3rd chapter. And if you have Goblin Bombardment or Barrage of Expendables, you can basically use it to lightning bolt anything. Okay, and another way of forcing through damage, Goblin War Drums. It's just a flavourful way of getting through. Okay, those are some of the main cards in the deck. Support artifacts. We have Swiftfoot Boots for protection and haste for Krenko. We have the classic Skull Clamp. Early game, we can clamp some goblins, draw some cards. That works really well with the Skirk Prospector. As does this, the Carnage Altar. So we pay 3, sacrifice a creature, draw a card. So basically, we can pay 3 and draw 3 cards. We have Hall of Triumph as a cheap way of boosting our creatures. It's one of the cards that could be cut for the future upgrades. And we have Obelisk of Ud. Again, this is a buff and we can convoke it out. Explorer Scope works really well in this deck as a way of ramping. We have Soul Ring and a Hazoret's Monument, which is a good way of getting through some of the cards in our hand and drawing new cards. So, Lords for the deck, or Lord effects, we have Goblin Chieftain to give our other goblins +1/+1 and haste. We have the Goblin King, which has been errated since its printing, so all other goblins have +1/+1 and Mountain Walk. It's a goblin itself now. We have the Trash Master, which gives our other goblins again +1/+1, and it's great to be able to sacrifice a goblin to destroy target artifact. Again, that works really well with Skull Clamp. We have the Hobgoblin Bandit Lord, which works very well with Krenko. It gives other goblins +1/+1, and we can pay a red and tap it, And if we had 20 goblins enter the battlefield this turn, we can dome someone for 20, as an example. Eldrazi Monument, because who doesn't love flying indestructible goblins? And it's a very easy to meet the sacrifice a creature cost. And we have Coat of Arms, classic. You do have to be aware of other typal decks, because this will buff them as well. Usually, if you get it down by turn 5, you've got a lot of goblins on the field anyway, and you can just outpace your opponent. But yeah, it's a really good card. In terms of sorceries to generate more goblins, we have Empty the Warrens, which has Storm. It makes 2. Dragon Fodder, which makes 2. Krenko's Command, which is a functional reprint, I should say. And Holding Outburst, which makes 3 goblins. And we also have Relentless Assault. So that's just a way of getting an additional combat if we're going the beatdown route. The rest of the creatures in the deck I'll run through really quickly. We have Krenko's other card, Tin Street Kingpin. Pashlik Mons, which we can use to sacrifice and ping and generate goblins. Goro Goro, which is a way of giving haste. I wouldn't usually use the second ability, but it might prove useful in certain games. We have Ibhafhat, which can be used to sacrifice mountains to put more goblins on the battlefield, if you so wish. We have Grenzo, which is an interesting card. It's not your typical goblin card, but again, it gives us options in the deck. These two are very similar. We have the Goblin Engineer and Goblin Welder. It can be used to find a particular artifact that we need and swap it over. If anyone's getting rid of our artifacts, we can use it to recur things from our graveyard. And we have Spike Shot Elder, which is a way of shooting people down in the late game, as is the Spike Shot Goblin. We have Goblin Matron as a way of finding a particular goblin that we want. Zozu the Punisher, great for going up against landfall decks for incidental chip damage. We have the Bloodmark Mentor, giving all red creatures first strike. We have the Goblin Crater Maker as a way of getting rid of pesky artifacts and possibly even Eldrazi. Battle Squadron, it's just big, dumb flying. Goblin Instigator to make more goblin tokens. Legion Warboss as a way of generating additional additional goblins in combat. We have the Goblin War Chief, gives everything haste and reduces the cost of our goblins. We have the Legion Loyalist as a way of making it so that tokens can't chump blockers. We have Dark Dweller Oracle. We can sacrifice creatures and exile the top card of our library, and we can play it that turn. So if you have Skirk Prospector or something like that and a lot of goblins, you can really start digging through your deck. We have Gem Palm Incinerator. Not so strong on its own, but the cycling ability is great when you have a lot of goblins. Again, this might be one of the cards that I look to cut for future upgrades. We have Ember Hauler, cheap removal. Goblin Raise Runners. We have Goblin War Driver. We have the Warren Instigator. Siege Gang Commander. Goblin Motivator. Goblin Ringleader. Chairing Fanatic. Goblin Rabble Master. Goblin Diplomats. And Arms Dealer. Okay, so that's most of the cards in the deck, aside from lands. In terms of lands, I've got 36 mountains, which is maybe a lot, but what I've found is the deck is more consistent in getting its creatures and artifacts and enchantments out. I have tried it with as low as 33 lands, but what I did find is I was mana screwed a few times when playing, so that's why I've employed more lands. In terms of future upgrades, what I'm thinking is the ramp and the draw is limited. Krenko works best by being faster. What we could do is look to put in cards like Lightning Greaves, Perforos, God of the Forge, and dare I say it, Torbran. I'm thinking maybe Ruby Medallion might be a good one to reduce the cost of our red spells. I'm also thinking Deflecting Swat or the more budget option of Bolt Bend could be good in this particular deck. So the other card I was thinking of for this deck was Blood Moon. Is it too mean for casual, or should we put it in there to punish greedy mana bases? Let me know in the comments below. In conclusion, this is a pretty fast and resilient deck with alternative ways to win. It costs roughly about $130 to $150, or that works out about £110. It's currently 6 ticks on Magic Online, so that's a really budget way to be able to play this deck. I would give it overall a ranking of 7, but in a 2-player game, one-on-one, this is an 8. It runs out very quick, and unless you've got removal pieces in your hand to take it out, you're going to struggle. Yeah, so it's a really fun deck. I enjoy playing it. It's one of my son's favourite as well. So, yeah, Krenko Mob Boss. There we are. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Let me know if this was too long or you want a more in-depth deck tech for the next one. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks very much for watching. Like this video? Please like, share and subscribe for more content.